Next question is from Likey Van Fastenhout. Can yin yoga be used as mobility training, or is it different?
Okay, so let's describe yin yoga first. So yin yoga is a form of yoga where you get into a position, usually a stretch type position or pose, and you hold it for very long periods of time while trying to breathe through it, while trying to relax your body. So it's almost like static stretching. There's a lot of static stretching involved in yin yoga. So it's like you get into pigeon position and you hold that position for like 3 minutes. Okay, so is that by itself good mobility work? No. As part of a mobility routine, it could be though. Now, why isn't it by itself good mobility? Because static stretching or long stretches increase range of motion, but they don't do anything to give you better connection over that new range of motion. So just because now I can, stretch my arm further back, that doesn't mean I have more mobility in the sense that I don't have strength over that new range of motion. In fact, if I move into that new range of motion, doing an exercise with weight on me, my risk of injury actually goes up. So now how does this help with mobility as part of a mobility routine? Well, if you're really tight and you work on increasing range of motion, but then you combine it with ways of connecting to that new range of motion, now you've got a good mobility approach.
So if I'm to understand, because I've never done a yin yoga class, I hear you talk about it pretty frequently. I know, mind blowing, right? I look like a total yin yoga guy.
Yeah.
I wear the shirts and everything. But
he likes happy baby.
Yeah. In terms of it being a little bit more on the passive side versus active in terms of these poses, how much emphasis is on, kind of creating that intrinsic tension?
It's not. So it's much more passive. So whereas traditional yoga, I'm in a pose and I'm creating tension. If you really do proper yoga, you're creating tension and support. You're not allowing the mat to support you or just sitting lax with your joints. You want to stay active. Yin yoga, you're getting these positions, like I said, like happy baby or pigeon or, different types of position on the ground, and you're trying to settle into the position and stretch.
So it's more parasympathetic.
That's where the yin comes from.
Not only that, but, and by the way, if I had a client that was doing yin yoga, I would totally be like, keep doing it, especially if you like it, because there's mental benefits that come with that too.
Huge, yes, thank you.
So there's other benefits that come with something like yin yoga, and I think it's an incredible practice. And if I had a client that loves doing it, I would totally promote them doing it. And then if they were to ask me something like, "So Adam, does this count as my mobility exercises that you were wanting me to do?" I would say no. And the reason why I'd say no is that mobility is ideally supposed to be targeted for what you need. Mm-hmm. Right? Where you're taking a yin yoga class, you have some teacher up there who doesn't know any of your imbalances or where you lack mobility. They're just going to teach this really cool organized flow of movements that's going to help relax you and calm you down and put you in some nice static stretches, which is all positive. But you may have, for example, I've taken some yoga classes and there wasn't a lot of emphasis on a specific ankle mobility exercise. There were some things that required a little bit more ankle mobility, but it wasn't very direct, right? Where that was an area I needed to be hyper focused on. So I could have done 1,000 happy trees and downward dogs and all these things like that, which are all beneficial, positive things for you.
Better names.
But if I wasn't doing my combat stretch in there, I was really limiting my progress of working on my deep squat, hence the last question that we just talked about. And so, mobility ideally is more targeted, and the more targeted you can be, the more frequent you can do that. So if I found let's say 3 mobility exercises that I knew really made a huge difference on my client, right? So they have really rounded shoulders, they have poor ankle mobility, and they have really locked up hips, and they have terrible external rotation. Well, 90-90s, combat stretch, and then the zone 1 test are 3 movements I want them to religiously do. And I would way rather them spend a whole hour in those 3 movements than spend an hour of 12 random movements.
Yes,
does that make sense?
And
it also sounds to me like it's completely in contrast with mobility. Being that it's more passive, it's more access of range of motion with more flexibility being the focus in terms of being able to be loose and calm your system down, address all the stress and the tensing sort of mechanism, whereas mobility is more focused on bringing in that strength support system, that stability around the joint, and that's why we do add that bit of tension, but it's focused tension around the joint for support.
Yes, more range of motion does not necessarily mean you have better mobility. In fact, in some cases, it could mean worse mobility. I've used this example before. Like a baby has tremendous ranges of motion. You take a baby and you can take their feet and you can move them all over the place, but they have really bad stability, which means they're not very mobile. I mean, they can't move very well on their own. And if you do put them in a position where in their stretch, you put any load on them, they'll hurt themselves. Not that I suggest you put load on a baby, but it's just it's an easy example to understand.
First the kids with cigarettes, now loading babies.
Smoke cigarettes and do squats for babies.
We're gonna piss so many people off.
6-month-old babies, yeah.